Hey, my Infinity friends. Coming to you from the garage today. We got a little bit of a different project, and it involved these. May not necessarily be an Infinity, but we're going to use a lot of Infinity parts. As you saw in the last video, I have an abundance of parts left over from a few projects and scarfing diaphragms and such. So I'm packing all this stuff away the other day. I'm kind of looking around and I'm thinking with my new RSAs that I'm adding to the stack, I'm going to officially have 10 10-inch subwoofers, but yet I'm only going to have 6 tweeters. I wish I would have the heart to actually cut into my pristine RS3As and add a second tweeter to them. Because I've seen one line, I'm not sure which one it is, but I've seen one of them that actually has 2 tweeters in it, and it looks like the identical box, so it must be like a 4B or something, but whatever it happens to be. I just don't have the heart to cut into those speakers like that. I thought about it for a little while, and being that these guys, they don't even need boxes. I mean, they know nothing. They just need a plate to mount to. I thought, well, why can't I just add one to the top? Have it set on top like a picture or something. So being like they are, as I said, you can pretty much just mount them in a board if I wanted to and stick them up on, lean them up against the wall. But I don't want that sitting on top of my perfect speakers. So I think I'm going to do this a little better than that. And as I said, I plan on using this crossover here. I'm going to take the mids off of it and just use the tweeters and the connectors and fuses and all that stuff on the crossovers in the back. And I'm going to build pretty much a 2.5-inch picture frame. And we'll get into more details about it later. But what I really kind of wanted to do, and I did it last night, and I spent hours figuring out where I wanted each one of these. This is not even a real one I'm going to use. This is just one I was temporarily playing with. And I got each place marked out, and as I said, it's only going to be about 17 inches long, so that part actually gets cut off if I was using this. So I got them spaced out properly, and the way it's going to be is this piece back here will countersink away from this. As you can see, there's going to be a reveal there, and the reason for that is I'm going to use this for a screen frame, and by the time that I add material to it, because I'm going to have to wrap it around, so it'll be on both sides of that, and a way of actually attaching it. It'll come out just kind of like flush, like the Infinities do. They just come out just a little bit where they have that tiny little bump on them. So that'll be nice. And yeah, it's a whole lot more complicated than it looks, but I think I have a plan here. Now I just need to get started. Since I'm limited on tools, I basically took a 1x6 and cut it down to like 19 inches because I'm going for 17. And I cut down 2 pieces of pine and 2 pieces of oak and made sure they were nice and squared up on my chop saw. And 6 inches, I'm 5.5, I guess, really. It's very limit. And as you saw, I had to do a little trimming on the edge with a saw. But so 2 pieces of each, squared them up, clamped them up as hard as I could to make sure they stay that way. And then marked this end down here and made my 10-inch chop saw go through all 4 pieces. So I wasn't happy about that, but it did a very good job. Then I took my box sander and I made sure I box sanded off any marks, any ends that was not perfectly level with each other. So I should have 4 uniform pieces here. I don't know if they're perfect pieces, but at least they're all exactly the same. So I'm going to mark each one of them on the top because it won't show anyway, to make sure they all stay orientated. And if they're all cattywonked, then they'll both look exactly the same, and I'll say I actually designed it that way. So now I need to get the fronts marked up and all the holes drilled for the tweeters, and I'm still don't have a design yet for the crossover. I don't know whether I'm going to put it inside or outside. I'm pretty sure if I put it inside, I'll never be able to get it out again without taking the boxes apart, so that may be a concern. I don't know yet, but lots of marks to make. Alright, I did my measurements, and a lot of them they were, to make sure they were exactly where I want, because believe it or not, it's not like they can just go square, square, square. These are bigger than these, and these things come so close to the bottom, I'm actually going to route out at an angle on the backside and try to leave even a little extra here. Also, the width wise, they change, and there's going to be a bar here to hold the screen, so we got to be careful of that. Long story short, I have these pretty little trim rings. You can see why, as I said, with these little silver guys, I can see why they have trim rings, because they fit these holes perfectly, and it's all because of the diaphragm, which is, I mean, that's the diaphragm. And there is absolutely no room. So, as I said, I think I'm going to notch out backside here underneath. Long story short, though, I've got a lot of holes to start drilling and actually jigsawing out. First thing I had to do was some work to this crossover here. One, it was a little large to fit into my little box here, and we had to take the mid-range stuff out, everything that went with it. I'm going to plan on putting a blank over it, but parts of it was sticking up way too high. Okay, I just spent some time making a huge mess, and along with our oak fronts here all cut out, I went ahead and I cut out the backs, and along with cutting them out, I had to use my router to butcher a hole here, but that makes this countersunk into there, and if I mount it on the outside, this capacitor here sticks up too far. And even when I use my structure piece, it's still going to stick up too far if I mount it on the outside. But when I countersink it like that, it should turn out pretty nice. The only other option was to actually mount it on the outside, and that wouldn't look good at all. But that should look as good as any other Infinity I have. I've got some sanding to do, and then I have a surprise, actually. Got another day going here. It's been about 10-14 hours, somewhere around there. We painted up our backer plates last night. It's just a Rust-Oleum black. Both of them are nice and dry. Here's a surprise. We decided to stain our oak fronts ebony. Not going to paint these. I like the oak too much. I think that'll really kind of set them off with this ebony. Something I did downstairs last night is I took our crossovers here, and since the wires were so long, since they were made up for full-size speakers, being RSAs, they were quite long. I chopped them in half and soldered new wires for here and here. So now I have 4 leads, 2 positive, 2 negatives. And I did that for both of them, and we blocked up, put a blank over the hole so you won't see that, unless you're behind my stereo anyway. And what the hell are you doing back there if that's the case? We are planning on using something we found online. Apparently this is for a QLS1, but it should serve this purpose fine. We're not going to put, you know, we have 8 totals. We're just using the 4 here, so we're only going to use half of this bank, And that's why we did the 2 leads, because with a positive lead here, you'll need a connection here and here, because you're only going to daisy chain 2 of them together at a time. And the issue with these junctions here is I'm not big on those when I can just run wire A, wire B, wire A, no, not that, but more, wire A, wire B. That's the plan. At the moment, I need to get the crossovers into the backs. I have come to the conclusion if you had to work on the crossovers, you could probably do it through the fronts here, but you are not getting these out of the boxes again. Short of either cutting around the box on the backside or taking the whole box apart. So, but you'll be able to, if you had to, you could change a transistor through here or a capacitor if you needed to. As I said, I've already tested mine. They seem to work fine. And I got some work to do. Alright, we have our backs done. We decided to screw them in because they were a little wonky, from sitting around for probably 20 years or who knows how long they've been sitting in boxes. And so we got them to lay flat with the screws. Then I just went ahead and I got out my hot glue gun here and went all the way around it. I still have that mindset of it being actually a speaker that has air movement inside of it, even though it's only going to be that thick. And it doesn't have any air movement. It still makes the piece solid all the way around and doesn't require the screws, which were only about, I don't know, a couple 16ths into this wood to hold that actual crossover in place. So they're solid and good to go. So the backs are done and the faces are done. Now it's time to join them together. Okay, just moving along here, doing the best I can with a chop saw, a pass load finish nailer, and some glue. I kind of like the way it's going to hopefully finish up looking like. These 2 sides are already on. I'm actually just kind of fitting up this side here. And I was ready to glue it on. I thought, geez, I haven't taken any film yet, so I better take some film. But that's how wide it's going to be. The back piece will actually countersink into it. So, okay, here we are after an insane amount of sanding. I've gone ahead and used some stain here, and I actually mixed up some a little darker than the normal golden oak, which matches Infinity speakers real close. It's just a little light. So I went ahead and I darkened it up quite a bit more than what I should have, because I've gone from this to that, which is a lot darker than that's about what it's supposed to be. But to get to this, you kind of have to do that, and then you sand it, and it comes back to that. And now after this, after I sand this one, because I'm in a break here, I'm going to go ahead and I will use my Minwax Golden Oak, and that should make all the rest of the places that are a little light and don't have that depth a little darker and have more depth. So, but I don't think anybody wants to watch me sand, so it's no fun there. I'm going to continue on, and when I get to the boxes, we will assemble them and move on with the project. Alright, it's been about 18 hours. They got a lot of ventilation, they dried up real well. Then we went ahead and put a layer of Johnson's paste wax on it. I mean, I just like to saturate it up. I mean, it's soak it up with that stuff and then let it sit for a half hour. You get a nice, it's still going to be a dry sheen eventually here after a couple days, and then you're going to hit it up with some liquid wax of some kind. But it turned out pretty nice, and I do like the contrast. Still keep that Infinity black and yet. And on a side note, if I did have a full-size workshop, I think the thing to do would be to build your frame, and then if you have a table saw with a, as Norm Abrams would say in my younger days, a dado head where you could channel out this board I actually had to build my frame around it because I have nothing like that. A chop saw and a pass load and a drill. So that's about the extent of my woodworking abilities. But like I said, what I would do is I would cut all 4 pieces, make a nice perfect box. Then I'd run a dado head through here, and that way this piece could actually slot in and it doesn't have to be actually perfect, and that would make it really easy. But in the process of doing this, something I did discover is this. I was thinking that the back plate was going to have to be part of the structure. Well, as I got building it and enough glue in it and a little extra wax there, I was ready to set my back plate, and I discovered something that probably will be beneficial at some point in life, and it's that it just slips in like so. So to be able to have access to the crossover, if anything actually goes wrong, I mean, they're already 50 years old and there's nothing really wrong with them now. I can't really see much else happening, but maybe I want to upgrade it at some point in the future. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill 4 screws, and I'm just going to screw the corners. That way the plywood or the pine board doesn't have a way of curling like it's already starting to do from one point to another, because this is actually very square, believe it or not. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drill these guys out, and then I'm going to go ahead and start drilling out some of the speakers in the face. That way I can get them positioned. I'm having an issue with the little ones right now because I haven't built any, and the way they sit, I mean, that's why they have the trim rings, and that's why they made the bigger, rounder ones, because they're such a pain. I mean, if they're not perfectly centered, they're wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wait on that until I get those actually built up before I screw them in place. But the majority of it's going to get done here in a minute. Alright, welcome back, friends. Glad to be here. The alternative is not a good thing.